to Now Conversations. This is Conversation with Book Authors. And so I am very happy to introduce you to our guest, Sarit Zadok. And she comes to us from the south of France. And wait until you hear what she's working on, her two books and moving to a book series. And she's got an incredible background. And I just want to share that right before I came on stage, loading everything up to StreamYard as we are live on YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn, accidentally closed down the stream. And StreamYard, if you're listening, and I'll have to maybe boost this segment to the LinkedIn message to them, if you exit from StreamYard, everything you loaded goes away. So I am going to be sneaky and load here as we talk, but let me bring up our author and she can tell you a little bit about her background, and let's dig in to talk about everything book publishing. So here she is. Welcome to the stream. Hello, Sarit. How are you?
I'm excellent. How are you, Lisa? Thank you so much for this.
Well, thank you for being here. And I know you're ahead of us, right? So 9:30 is what time your time in France?
It's 3:30.
Okay.
Yeah, very, very, very hot here in the south of France.
Very well. It's hot everywhere. I mean, it's already always hot here in Tampa, Florida, but man, I've been talking to, at least in the US, and I mean, it's the world global warming idea, right? So, but thank you for being here. And I'm so happy that we met each other. And I'm excited for people to hear. Can you take us through, because we just had the conversation, by all meaning of the world, you are an international woman, no question. Maybe just take them through your journey and how you got here. Thank you.
So it's exactly like what you said. So I was born originally in Tel Aviv, and I had a couple of years there, and then my parents immigrated to the United States. So I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I later went to Philadelphia. I studied at the University of Pennsylvania. I studied psychology. Afterwards, I kind of had ants in my pants in my 20s, and I just really wanted to travel. So I spent a lot of time backpacking through South America and Asia and India and all kinds of different places. I ended in Egypt in the Sinai Desert, where I wanted to become a dive master, and I kind of had this life as a dive master. Then I was just hopping back and forth. At some point, I had a band in New York City. I sang and played bass. So I did a bunch of things. Eventually, I ended up here in the south of France because I met a boy from the south of France who ended up being my husband and now ex-husband. This is how my French thing started. And I settled down in a small Provençal medieval village in the south of France, where I'm running a tourism agency. So all day long, I walk around, sometimes in the very heat, and I tell stories about history and the region to a lot of people who are interested in this area. So I'm a storyteller all the time. And love history. And at the same time, this is what I do for a living, but at the same time, I've also started writing historical science fiction, which I consider to be kind of like my legacy work. And this was after I was trying my best to become a screenwriter, but for the time being couldn't find financing for my projects, so I turned them into books. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm kind of juggling both things.
I love that. And so tell us, because I'm very envious of multilingual, even bilingual people. How many languages do you know, lady?
So I'm fluent in English, French, and Hebrew. I do have a very good understanding of Arabic, since originally my background is Yemenite, so I'm like 100% Yemenite. And also Spanish from my trampling in South America for months and months on end. I kind of lost the verbal way of talking, but I understand a lot of Spanish, so that's kind of like my language abilities.
Well, let's yes, again, very envious of that. I that somewhere, well, in my retirement, I've decided I need to do the lingual thing, right? And then also, now that I know a travel agency that can take me to France, and that I'm happy we connected because that's also on my bucket list. But let's jump in now. Unfortunately, I've lost the. I'm here with you, but I've been loading your books up. Let's talk about your book series. You've got 2 books up as I bring up your books and the correction. And tell us about that book. When people ask you, tell me about the books you've written, 2 of possibly 5 that you're working on. Share with that, please. Share with us.
Okay, so this is the first book in the series that came out in March. This is the correction series. The first one is called Old Earth. And this is the second one that's coming out at the end of August. It's coming out in like 2 weeks' time. And actually right now I'm running a free promo on this one. So you can, for 5 days until the 11th of August, you can get the ebook for free on Amazon.
On volume 1?
Of volume 1, you can get the ebook
Okay.
for free for just 5 days. You can just download it from Amazon for free. This is in anticipation of the launch of the second book. So people who didn't get a chance to get into the series, they can get the first book for free. And what are these things about? So this is I call this a historical science fiction. So historical science fiction is traditionally kind of like time travel. This is not time travel. This is simulation travel. So I treat history as a simulation. And basically in this long saga, in the future, there are these rogue historical simulations that are creating problems in the base reality. Base reality is meaning the real reality, and then there are simulations around. So a soldier from the future, an operative, is sent into one of these historical simulations to kind of try to fix the problem, hence the title, The Correction. He's trying to correct these problems. And he finds out that basically there is some kind of anomaly that is holding these simulations in an unresolved state, and he's unable to delete them. And it's a whole story of what it is and how it is, but it is traced to an 8-year-old Bedouin girl that is holding a gold coin that is acting as an anchor for the simulation and preventing this collapse. So that's kind of like the problem. And throughout his journey, this operative has been trying to do this for many times, and he's always failing. Until now, in this mission, he kind of breaks the cardinal rule of participation. So normally operatives are not allowed to participate romantically with the simulation entities. But wouldn't you know it, he falls in love with a Bedouin girl from the simulation. And hence starts a whole other saga where he's now very conflicted about his mission, because to collapse the simulation actually means that it is to delete the whole thing, meaning also delete the people that he's come to know and love. But to keep it open at the same time is to keep this, there's a looming war that I get into later. This is the third book I'm like revising right now. Leaving this war open in an unresolved state, basically condemning all the entities to a forever war. So it's a big conflict, and that is basically the subject of these 2 books. So the first book is kind of like his insertion and a lot of background, and his marriage to this girl and his romance with this girl, and him living with the Bedouins, which is based on my experiences in the Sinai Desert. I love the desert. And then the people he meets, and then book 2, this one that you're showing, the 12 coins. Now he's on a mission to destroy these coins that are plaguing the simulations, and then he faces resistance, and then he learns all kinds of other things. And at the end of this book, I won't give it away, but he ends up at another simulation, which is actually the source of the paradox, and it's setting up a very big war in Jerusalem, which is based on true history. And this is the subject of the third book, which I'm editing and revising right now. So that's the book series. I hope that makes sense. I can't hear you for some reason.
All right, that would be the mute. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, no, I'm excited for you. Especially you said you're on the trilogy. You're on the third book of a 5 book series. So from my perspective, I'm going to ask the question of, okay, when is the total completion in your mind in terms of a timeline? Give or take a few months here or there. What are you thinking to get all 5 books out?
I think this third book is mostly written, and now I've sent it to a couple of very high level people.
Yep.
And this the third book. I've also built it as a standalone, meaning people who have not read the first 2 books, they can enter the series through this third book,
Smart.
because it's basically a historical construct of the siege of Jerusalem, the Jewish Roman War. So this one is written, but is pending editing, and I'm also still hopeful that I can find an agent and maybe traditionally publish it. So I'm going to Ireland next week, where I'm going to try to network and see how that goes, and it's an author conference.
Yep.
And so if that doesn't work, I'll just self-publish it, probably late winter 2027. Book. It's more or less like every 18 months another book.
Okay.
That's how I kind of see it.
Okay. Great.
I've
All
writ-
right.
I've, writ- I've written maybe 50% of the 4th book, but I admit it needs a lot of work still.
They always do, right? The manuscripts always do. I learned early on, when we would take in a manuscript for potential of publication, how many times I would hear, from the author, "Oh, it's ready to go." "Oh, you don't need to," right? "Oh, I've had so much editing done in it," and whether that was with money or without money didn't matter. But the editing, and it is ready to go. I definitely almost, now when I hear that, it's almost like totally telling me it's not even near ready to go.
No.
But and even the best manuscripts. I mean, some of the podcasts that I watch and listen to from amazing writers and very successful book authors will say, another more eyes the better. And there's always a new perspective. There's always a different reader that is going to read something into something that you wrote that you had no idea as an author that you meant to put out there. And thank goodness, you had that editing and proofing. So anyway, I wanted to stay on that for a minute, but um, let me ask you, what I like that we're talking about now is this idea. Well, first of all, fiction, is a fiction type series, which is not so much of what we've done over the years. We're probably, I would really say we're 90-10. I'd say 10% has been our fiction authors. We happen to be, we've been doing a lot of that 10% in the last couple of years, to be honest, maybe the last 3 years. So my head's really there. And of course, our interaction with fiction is 100% different than nonfiction, just hands down. Just the whole creative writing process, the book authors that are fiction book authors versus nonfiction book authors, from our perspective, are completely different. And I admire so greatly the creativeness of a person like you to put this together. When you said, okay, I've got this, first book in me and I wanted to start writing it, was it always a series? How did that come together? Do you have, like, where you're going to end in the 5th book, or just kind of share that with people as far as that?
So I think originally this was a TV show that I wrote during COVID, because I had nothing else to do. And it was called The Blue Hole, which is based on this dive site, which is also in the book. But it was a completely different story, and I shopped it around, and many people liked it, but nobody wanted to produce it since it's so expensive, like diving scenes and fantasy and all kinds of things. And then I was really attached to it, so I was like, I'm just going to start novelizing it. And I started to novelize the first episode. And once I was done with it, I was like, I'm kind of bored with it. Like, I felt like something is wrong. Like, the story was just like, I had no energy to continue doing this. I'm like, so something is wrong. It's not, And then I just started to think about, okay, so this anomaly, and then what would happen. And then I just saw the first scene. I saw this like warrior from the future who's coming, failed, pissed off, not understanding, exhausted, stretched to the brink of just, exhaustion. it just became this like thread that the more you pulled, the more it just like unveiled. And originally I saw it as a trilogy, and then once I got to book, at the end of book 2, where I started opening up different worlds, and then it became like, several plots interweaving. I was like, no, this is not going to really be. And then the third book, the whole Siege of Jerusalem, and it's like a very historical fiction that's with a speculative element envelope. So I did a lot of research on this, and I really wanted to do my best on it. And I had to give it just its own book. I just could not really blend in all kinds of other things with it and different plot lines. I felt it would be deceiving the pressure cooker of the siege warfare narrative that I'm building in book 3. And then once I realized that's just going to be its own book, I realized that there's 2 more books. I know how it ends. I know the end point. I know exactly what happens at the end, but the way itself, I'm not really sure yet, 100%. That's the fun of it. But
I was going to say, that's the fun dig in. And, we do believe that you should have an outline. Every writer should have an outline. And when you have a book series, you really need to have an outline of the book series, but it's very unstructured, or I shouldn't say that it's structured. It's very loose and yielding, right? Because that is the fun of it. And I do love what you said, because that is what happened with an author we're working with right now that's working on his trilogy, his 3rd book. The 3rd book came because the 2nd book was too full. So like you said, you're right. You're like, hold it, this can't end now. And, maybe you're 100,000 words into it. So you need to stay within those guidelines, right, for marketability. But it's very cool. Again, it's not for everyone, for sure, becoming an author and becoming published. And in fact, it leads me to a question I want to ask you, because I think this is important to share, especially with your international background, to see, what might be new there. Is what is part of the difficulty? What has been part of the most difficult part of this, becoming a book author and publishing your book now in 2? I mean, what is that thing that you wish that you just had a magic wand and just sailed through that? What can you share regarding that?
I think the hardest part is just the dead silence. It's like you write something and you put it out there, and the moment you put it out there, it's kind of like giving birth, and it's open to everything, and you have to accept that it's open to everything. You have to take the criticism, you have to take the things. And so it's either like complete silence, like when you're trying to either query people or get some editors to review your book, or get people interested, or sometimes you're trying to pitch it to like booktubers or whatever, and it's just like this dead silence. I understand it. I understand people can't like answer, but that's just difficult, to deal with. And you really have to have like elephant skin. You have to have this unwavering motivation, and almost to take all of this, the rejections of this, and you almost have to be an egomaniac. You have to kind of think that what I have in my brain is worth someone's time. So it's kind of that, but at the same time, you have to kind of stay humble and understand that you don't know everything. Don't assume everything, and you can study and do as much as you want, but eventually there's no substitute for mentorship. And it's looking for this mentorship and getting professionals around you to help you. It's because you can only learn from a lot of other people. So that's something, I would say, the difficult part. It's not the writing, it's not the publishing, it's not the formatting, it's not the design, it's not the uploading. You could say it's the marketing, but I think even traditionally published authors have a hard time marketing. Everyone is struggling for a share of voice. So I can't really say it's that. It's just sometimes when you're reaching out to people and you really want them to just take a look, just read like a couple of pages, and then you see like unsubscribe or whatever, and they're just not interested. And it's a little bit of a pinch, but I understand it.
You said so much there that I loved. I loved your elephant skin, and right as you started to talk, I wrote down, take no offense. And I'm a believer. And even in the Bible, it says, don't be offended. Don't walk around this world being offended. That is so easy to say, but trust me, I've got a sports thing this today. And if someone makes me mad, I'm going to be all mad about it. So there I am, I'm going to take offense that my, shot was in, and they said it was out. Let's just say that.
Mm,
But you're right about that elephant skin, and no offense, but the thing is, it is so personal, like you said. And I've heard this many times and believe it, that when you publish your first book, it is giving birth for the first time. You are birthing your amazing story. You're birthing it. Whether it's fiction or nonfiction, it's the same. In this respect, the authors are the same in how I
mm,
feel, where you are sharing, as an author, you are revealing part of you and sharing your creativeness, or you're sharing something that you went
mm.
through, good or bad. And so it is personal. So when people don't, like you said, when people don't react like you think they should, or don't react at all, and then make it even worse, might say something um negative and funny, and just, I don't want to go on because it isn't about me, but I'm going to just share this. I just recalled with my first book, someone, who knows where it was, maybe Amazon. So it's my first book, and I published my first book 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, and was with a different publisher. Of course, I wasn't in publishing. Someone said something like, this book, isn't good, or it was some comment I should, which of course I remembered forever, but it was some sort of comment, really like cheapening it, like, oh, it's not worth it, or whatever. And I do, like today. So here we are, 11 years later, I remember that one comment. You can't help it. We're
You
human.
you just can't help it. You have to know that not everyone is going to like it,
Right.
and it's not for everyone. And I actually, I've had a couple of those comments, and I take them on. I'm grateful, and some of them actually made me think, and some of them are just like, okay, it's, again, it's not for everyone, and I'm not trying to go like wide and and write a book for the masses. It's obviously it's very niche. You have to love history. You have to like speculative elements. You have to be willing to deal with like literary fiction and interweaving things, and a lot of like genre breaking blending. I do kind of break the rules a bit. So I understand it's not for everyone, and that's cool. I don't need everyone. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's
Right.
I don't.
No.
Even like a couple of hundred people who dig what I'm doing, for me is like amazing,
Oh,
amazing.
even even one, and it's the same thing. You're a mother, and you've got teenagers. I have young adults in college now, and it's even that thing that they need to learn about people. Not everyone's going to love you. Not
Mm,
everyone's going to be your fan. Not everyone's going to like you. Some people are going to not like you just because, for no reason or anything you did. They're just not going to like you, period. And when you're young, it's a big lesson to learn. So it's the same thing about the books, right? Not everyone's going to dig what you have to say. And then there's, unfortunately, there's that side of of life for people that are just like to complain. People aren't happy, so they like to take it out on you. And so what is it? Take a good comment I learned years ago was, never take criticism. No, never take criticism. Never take criticism from someone. No, see, I cannot remember something about making sure you understand the reference. It's really a good line, which I forgot, but it's,
yeah.
make sure you understand from the reference, from where it's coming from. Right. So, I would be an awful, I read my clients' books, of course, and I'm so, thrilled about them when I'm like, this is the best book ever. I couldn't put it down. You're so creative, but yet if I did any sort of, um, you know, type of editing for fiction, I would fail. I'm not a fiction editor,
Mm,
so that shouldn't be taken. But no, thank you. I think it's good that we went there, because we don't, it's a good reminder for us, because we are
yeah.
human. We, like you said, there's an ego involved in it. And you should be, there's pride, there's an ego. You should be very proud of yourself. And you're almost, almost through that big dig for book 3. So I would say, after you get, the download of the content and the heavy editing, then it's
Hmm.
kind of the fun part of the book, to finish it up. So you're there. But
But I also think that a lot of times, sometimes. books or works of art, they find their audiences later. Sometimes it's a question of timing. A lot of times throughout history, there were authors or painters or this who at the time, like, people didn't get it. It was not the right time. It was this.
Yeah.
And then, years later, this gets its own momentum. So I'm kind of really looking for the future. I'm not looking like this book was uploaded. Oh my God, the first month Amazon sales are like this. I'm not even actually looking at sales, to be honest. I'm just like, it's out there, you have to release it and have it find like its own way. And it may take a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. You know what I'm saying? You just have to keep showing up and do the work. That's what I'm.
Such great advice. And we're getting to the end where I want to ask you the last question, but the culture we're in, right, is about becoming the Amazon bestseller of new releases. And so you do a digital marketing campaign for that. And it's also immediate gratification, or even with something that I did recently, it's like, how many views can you get in the first 30 days? I mean, this is going to live in, like, exactly, it's legacy, but that's the culture we're in, right? And it just is. So if we know it, fine, we recognize it, and if we need to be in those areas for what we're trying to achieve, okay. But like you said, it's a long game, and it's a legacy, and that right person at the right time. And again, how many famous people have become famous after they've passed away even? We've seen that before. So thank you for sharing that. I want to make sure everyone knows how to connect with you. So because I lost the comments, are you able to put your website in, or tell us also on the stream, and I'll add it to the notes on how people can connect with you and buy your books and such?
So you can go to my website, which is very easy to remember, is the correction altogether, .xyz. Okay. And over there, you get to my website, you get to my books, you can click, it'll take you to Amazon. And I do have to say that, remind everyone, if you're seeing this, just for the next like 3 days until the 11th of August, midnight Pacific time, you can get this first book, digital copy, for free. So you can just go to Amazon and just download it and see what it's about. Yes, perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Thank
yeah,
you for doing
no,
this.
I'm very excited to stay with you and stay connected with you. And I'll reach out when I retire, which who knows how long that will be, because I'm supporting my daughters, as you know, which I'm happy to do. But and just stay in touch with your series. And I'm going to grab your ebook and read the first one and see what it's all about. So thank you. And let's just, we only have like a minute here. Just give some encouragement to someone that's watching, and especially a fiction author. It's got a big creative brain and a story in them, and it keeps writing and stopping and writing and stopping. Just give some encouragement to say to go for it. What would you say to them?
I would just say that just show up and do the work. It's a very, very long process, and it's not really immediate. And surround yourself with a community, people who are at the same level, that you can support each other, so you don't feel like you're alone in all this. I met the most incredible people in different writers groups. And this is it's been like an amazing journey for me. The journey is, the journey of writing, the journey of meeting and building the community has just been incredible. So don't stress that you can't get it right the first time, because you won't. And it's editing and editing and editing, but don't do it alone. You don't have to be, it's not your, a lonesome battle that you have to do.
You're a rock star. You're a rock star. We didn't get to talk about diving. I wanted to be a dive master at one point, and I never did, but I'm so happy that you joined us. Thank you everyone for watching. And please connect with the correction.xyz. Thank you so much, Sarit. Have a great day. Thank you all for watching.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.